Baseball is the only game that death is jealous of. Baseball defeats time. Only baseball has the possibility of going on forever.
This is getting to be your neck of the woods, outside Boston.
No, I've never even been there, actually.
What? Why are you a Sox fan?
I like rubbing people the wrong way.
Massive fan of all three of you. David, I don't know if you can see it. I got my X-Files poster. I got a Mulder and Scully Barbie doll there, and I got a copy of your book here too. So very excited to talk to you today. I have to ask, Darren McGavin, Kolchak the Night Stalker, huge influence on the X-Files. He also played one of the iconic dads in film history. You got some crotchety elements in this character. You've got the heartfelt character. Did you draw any kind of inspiration from iconic dads on film or in literature for this role?
You know, I'm sure I did, subconsciously. And it's not my dad. My dad's nothing like Marty. My mom was oddly more like Marty than my dad. But, you know, I'll just tell you, you know, first thing I ever directed was an X-File that I wrote. And Darren McGavin, I wrote it for Darren McGavin because he was an established character on the show. And I wanted to write myself light in the episode because I was scared of directing and all that. I didn't want to act too much. And we shot my first day as a director ever. I shot with Darren McGavin. And then he got ill. And he couldn't finish the show. And I hired M. Emmett Walsh to play that part. So it was funny to hear you mention his name because he is on the kind of the erased footage of my first day as a director. But that's not the question you asked. But that happens to be the thing that I answered. So there you go.
Awesome. And Logan, you are in two films that I have recommended more than anything else over the last 10 years. The Invitation and Upgrade. Phenomenal performances. I realized looking back through all of your films, this is maybe the funniest role that you've ever played. There's a lot of drama in it, but it's also really funny. And it reminded me a lot of Joaquin Phoenix in Inherent Vice, like the mutton chops, and just like there's this surreal element to some of it. What did you channel to play Ted?
Funny enough, you know, there's a picture of John Lennon that David and I really, I think, responded to, but I'm pretty sure there's some Inherent Vice muttons in there too, as just, you know, mood board. And I'm not sure if I'm going to answer your question exactly, but you know, just the not just his facade, but the depth and the loss and where he is in his life, his relationship with his father. I mean, Marty is actually very close to who my father was. My dad flew. My dad flew in World War II. You know, even though I'm, you know, a Gen X kid, and there was lots there that I was like immediately drawn towards. And I think I've said it before. There was a lot of ugliness in Ted's like silhouette that I've always tried to stay away from, and I kind of just leaned into a lot of it, and I tried to, you know, really put on the weight and not just the weight physically, but the weight emotionally on this guy who can't get out of his own way, and the comedy of it was just the part that I was so scared of. All I've ever wanted is to play David's son, but especially to be in such a beautiful comedy with comic, I'm not going to call her comic actress anymore, but certainly I did coming in, Stephanie. I was so afraid the days that we would work with Stephanie. I'm, you know, I really mean it. I was like, I'm going to have to keep up with her comedically. And then I got all of these, you know, tricks, comedy tricks, and I read all the books, and then she walks on stage and she totally just destroys me and leaves me in the dust, and I was so terrifying. And then of course you got David, who's the director, the writer, he's doing the camera, and then he just like, without even thinking, David is such an incredible comic sense. It was exactly what I wanted And it's nothing I'd ever done before, and I appreciate you noticing that, because I don't get a lot of opportunities to play those lighter roles, and I'm so grateful that David offered it to me.
And I hope to see you in more of them in the future.
I agree. I'll say this about Logan's performance, like he never, and Stephanie doesn't do it either. Neither of them go for the joke, they play the reality of the situation, and they play the character, and they allow the joke to happen, if there's a joke there. And that I appreciated that very much as a director. I didn't have two actors trying to score with jokes. I had two actors playing characters who happened to be in funny situations occasionally.
Hard to disagree. I go for the joke more often than not. I just do it really subtly.
And you've been so good in so many things, Stephanie. Like Rose is like the greatest character in of TV for such a long time, and I love it so much. And you've been in so many good performances.
Suck it, David.
Well, we'll go back further to the 90s. We got to spread the wealth, but
I wanted Stephanie after watching her on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and it's not because I thought she was hysterically funny, and then I YouTubed around, and I thought, oh, it's not even her voice and everything. I thought she's a great actress, great comedic actress. But for me, comedic actors can have great depth, and I knew she had that in her, and it was so easy for her to access. It seemed so easy for her to access it, and she's just an amazingly deep performer. So
and Stephanie, you get to be very exposed in this. Was that really kind of a weight that you didn't have? Like you said, you don't have to fight to be funny. You're so good naturally. But was there any effort for the dramatic parts here, or did that come naturally as well?
Well, I think there's always a little bit of effort in the acting, right? Like it's not necessarily, it's easy, I think, for all of us to access. It's something that we enjoy doing. We're interested in it. We're interested in the journey of it. But sometimes things can feel like a bit of a puzzle. Unlocking the puzzle is fun, but I think the part of the puzzle is like, oh shit, I don't know where any of this goes, and I just have to kind of try to put it together and hope that it makes a picture. But I did feel, I think the thing that's challenging about, for me, that's challenging about film in particular is that they're real up in your face, like the camera's like, whoa. So sometimes for me, it was about trusting that the stuff that I was thinking and feeling was already being seen by the audience, right? Not having to make sure the back row sees it. It was just trusting. And I would watch how David and Logan were working in front of the camera, and I would try to copy the rhythms and the stuff that I could see them doing, because you can see it when you're sitting next to someone, you can see it, and I could see that they weren't doing anything but living in it. And so that part was a little bit challenging for me in a good way, and I learned a lot by watching the two of them and their work, because I think they've just done so much more film than I have, and I stole from them right and left. That was fun.
Awesome. Well, as a former long-suffering Cubs fan who named his son,
I want to say thank you, Stephanie. That was very sweet.
Oh.
Yeah,
I was just really appreciate your time today, all of you. As a former long-suffering Cubs fan who named his son after an iconic Cubs player, I really felt the baseball connection here, and I really appreciated it. The second half broke me in the best way possible. Thank you so much for your time.
Can I ask what your son's name is?
Actually, he's not a Cubs player, but his middle name is Clark Addison. I named him after the intersection at Wrigley Field, and I changed it while my wife was still recovering after he was born. She didn't ask me to. She didn't get permission, and they actually lost that season. He didn't win for another 8. So eventually, I made up for it.
Wow.
But awesome. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you.